Hello guys, welcome back to Anime Moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Against the Gods based on novel. So let's start explanation. This time, 100 people from the Yun family came to the Demon Empress Grand Ceremony. Amongst them, about half were young disciples. Out of the 36 core elders, 29 of them came along, and the 3 grand elders were also amongst them. None of the 3 grand elders stayed behind. All of them came along. Looks like father is really going all out this time. Xiao Yun approached Yunche and said quietly. Yunche nodded. The other guardian families would probably bring their best along with them as well. Speaking of which, is each family only allowed to bring 100 people? MN. At this Demon Empress Grand Ceremony, the top forces and leaders from each the major regions in Illusory Demon Realm were invited. But usually they could only bring a maximum of 3 people. Even those with top skills cannot have more than 10 people. Only us, the 12 guardian families, and each major duke palace can bring that many people, Xiao Yun explained. The Demon Empress Grand Ceremony had been at the center of worldwide attention for a while, so naturally he had some level of understanding about it. After all, the 12 guardian families were the most powerful forces within Illusory Demon Realm. Their position was equal to that of the profound Sky Continent's 4 great sacred grounds, and their existence was meant to protect the Demon Emperor's clan, so the special treatment came naturally. How many people will be at the grand ceremony? Yunche asked again. I don't know, Xiao Yun said as he scratched his forehead. This is also the first time I attended the Demon Empress Grand Ceremony. There would be about 100,000 people, Yun Qinghong, who was walking ahead of the, answered. Out of these 100,000 people, none of them are ordinary. This included mayors from major cities, aristocrats, sect masters, profound palace chiefs, and the kings of different races, as well as the young generations that they brought with them. They'll most likely be a young master or their number 1 genius. Demon Imperial City is the head of the Illusory Demon Realm, but even though their skills may not be on the same level as the 12 families, they cannot be underestimated. 100,000 people. The scale was close to what Yunche had expected. This was the first large event that happened after the reign of the Little Demon Empress, and it gathered almost all of the top beings in the whole Illusory Demon Realm. Yunche thought for a while, and asked, how many duke palaces are in the Illusory Demon Royal family? How are their strengths? There are 103 duke palaces, and the most powerful one is Duke Huai Palace. Yun Qinghong squinted his eyes and said, all of these royal families more or less have some of the Demon Emperor's bloodline. With such natural talent, their cultivating speeds are a lot faster than those of normal beings. In addition, having the most abundant resources and the opportunity to enter Golden Crow Lightning Flame Valley improved them greatly. Because of this, no one in the royal family is mediocre. They are all strong practitioners. Especially the Illusory Demon 7 scions of each generation. Their names are well known all over the world. Each Duke Palace has a shocking amount of strong practitioners, but the scale is still far behind the 12 guardian families. However, over the years, Duke Huai tried to win over all of the other dukes secretly. All of the powers from each major Duke Palace have gathered towards Duke Huai Palace, and on top of that, they used high prices to buy strong practitioners from each clan. Currently, the strength of Duke Huai Palace is unfathomable. Even the guardian families are leaning towards Duke Huai Palace, especially the Hellion clan. They are clearly on Duke Huai Palace's side. If Duke Huai really rose in revolt today, the situation would be unfavorable for the Little Demon Empress side. But even though the Little Demon Empress is a woman, she will not go down that easily. What will happen at today's Demon Empress Grand Ceremony is unpredictable. Demon Imperial Palace laid precisely at Demon Imperial City Center. Before even entering the range of the Demon Imperial Palace, an enormous hall so tall that it was covered by the clouds emerged before their eyes. This hall was so huge that it was almost the size of the entire Yun family. This Demon Imperial Hall was exactly where the Demon Empress Grand Ceremony was to be held. Above the hall, a large crow with its head up high, standing on 3 legs with golden feathers covering the sky was there, receiving the whole Demon Imperial City's veneration and worship. Seeing Yunche staring straight at the golden crow overhead, Xiao Yun explained, that is the golden crow divine beast's golden sculpture. The illusory demon royal family's demon emperor's bloodline is in reference to the Golden Crow's bloodline. The Golden Crow symbolizes the highest beliefs in illusory demon realm. It was still early. The Yun family's party wasn't moving fast. When they were about to enter the main entrance of the Demon Imperial Palace, a group of merely 10 or so people was coming over from the other direction. When they reached their destination, all of the guards in front of the palace welcomed and knelt before them. The leader of that party was dressed luxuriously. His expression revealed an imposingness which came from someone who was naturally born above others. From his eyes, there was arrogance, as if nothing on this world was good enough for him to look at. Seeing the Yun family's group, his eyes squinted, and his mouth slightly grinned, as he said with a joyous expression, "Oh, Big Brother Yun. Is it really you?" Yun Qinghong's footsteps stuttered. He turned around to look at him, and said softly, "Duke Huai, it's been a long time." "Duke Huai?" These two words quickly made Yun Che look to the direction of the person speaking. Everyone in Demon Imperial City knew about Duke Huai Palace's ambitions. His schemes were endless, so much so that he was reckless and fearless, and seemed to not be afraid of the little demon empress knowing. Yun Che thought that the Duke Huai would be someone without any manners, but the person who Yun Qinghong called Duke Huai was someone with a smile on his face, who looked harmless and gentle. It was hard to imagine him as someone with ambition that wanted to take over the demon emperor's throne, except for his eyes, which were deep like the dark night, and proud like a lone eagle. Ha 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 ha. Duke Huai laughed loudly as he walked over. "Big Brother Yun, it really has been a long time. 2 months ago I suddenly heard that you and sister-in-law's body magically healed." This duke was overjoyed. "Unfortunately I had to prepare for today's grand ceremony, so didn't have spare time to come and visit. I feel ashamed to appear before Big Brother Yun. I hope Big Brother Yun wouldn't be offended." 2 months ago, not only had Yun Qinghong insulted his son, Duke Hui Yi, he also personally beat up the venerable stone dragon into serious injury. The venerable stone dragon probably didn't come along today because he hadn't healed yet, and with that injury, it would most likely take more than half a year to recover completely. At the same time, Duke Huai Palace sending the Hellion family to assassinate Xiao Yun and number 7 under heaven had been exposed. But when this Duke Huai saw Yun Qinghong, he didn't bring it up at all, as if it had never happened. He even called Yun Qinghong Big Brother, so intimately, as if they were brothers through life and death who hadn't seen each other for many years. What a smiley poisonous snake. Yun Che laughed coldly to himself. Since Duke Huai had that thought, how could this Yun offended? Yun Qinghong said without emotion. "I." Duke Huai swung his hand, said with dissatisfaction, "Big Brother Yun, don't call me Duke Huai like a stranger, call me Brother Huai like the old days. I miss the old days when we brothers drank together. How about, after the Demon Empress Grand Ceremony, Big Brother Yun come to my shabby Duke Palace as a guest, and we, as brothers, could drink together? How about that? Duke Huai, I accept your good intentions, but I'll pass on the drinking." Yun Qinghong laughed lightly. The people are the same from back then, but the purpose is not the same as back then. As for the taste of the alcohol, it's naturally different as well. It has become hard to swallow, so it's better to not drink it. But Duke Huai wasn't mad at all towards Yun Qinghong's mockery. Is Big Brother Yun mad at this duke? Sigh, no wonder. This little brat from this duke's family doesn't let people stop worrying. "Yeah, come over here." Duke Hui Yi came out from the rear, and stood beside Duke Huai. A cold gaze brushed upon Yun Che's face. Duke Huai said, "I heard that this duke's good-for-nothing son disrespected Big Brother that day. Sigh, you've really humiliated our Duke Huai Palace. Yeah, hurry up and apologize to your Uncle Yun." Duke Hui gritted his teeth, lowered his head, and said, "Uncle Yun, Hui Yis was immature that day, please forgive me." Yun Qinghong calmly accepted it, and said softly, "Since you know your own fault, I will not hold a grudge against a junior. Duke Huai, I scolded your son, and embarrassed him in front of everyone that day. I hope Duke Huai wouldn't mind. Don't mention it, Big Brother Yun." Duke Huai waved his arm in a forthright manner. "My good-for-nothing son was out there with his reckless behavior, disrespected elders, and caused so much trouble. Big Brother Yun, as his senior, teaching him a lesson is a matter of course. This Duke can't thank you enough, why would I mind? Next time, if this brat disrespects you again, don't waste your tongue, just beat him up and throw him out. Yunche smiled enigmatically. Big brother, look at the person behind Duke Huiyi. Xiao Yun came over, said while lowering his voice. Yunche gave a sidelong glance behind Duke Huiyi. Standing there was a tall, muscular, young man. Huiyi could be considered fair-skinned, handsome, and elegant, while this young man was fierce-looking with sharp aquiline eyes and large muscles on his body. Just looking at him would make one feel the frightening power hidden within the muscles. The young man appeared to have felt Yunche and Xiao Yun's gaze, as he suddenly stared straight at them. However, his eyes left Yunche and Xiao Yun after one glance, then he scoffed loudly. His gaze was filled with extreme disdain, as though Yunche and Xiao Yun didn't even qualify for him to take another look. This man is Duke Huai's oldest son, Hui Ran, head of this generation's illusory demon's 7 scions. Whether it was the 12 guardian families or the illusory demon royal families, none under the age of 35 was his match. And he had a brutal nature. Those who fought him were either seriously injured or died a horrible death, Xiao Yun said in a low voice. From his voice, Yunche could hear his deep fear. Yunche nodded slightly and stopped looking at him. Yet at this moment, he realized that Duke Huai's gaze had suddenly landed on his person. Could this be the godson Big Brother Yun had adopted? If this Duke remembered correctly, his name should be Yunche? Duke Huai said while smiling. His gaze scanned Yunche from head to toe, then, he slowly nodded his head. As expected, his bearing is extraordinary. It is no wonder such a character like Big Brother Yun would adopt him as godson. How could he be someone common? At least from the looks of him, he's probably even stronger than the biological son. Xiao Yun stepped forward, kept a straight face and said, Big Brother is indeed stronger than me. With a big brother like this as an example, I am confident that I will improve myself even faster. At the very least, I would not embarrass my parents. Yun Qinghong nodded his head slightly, his expression was full of approval. Good, ha 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 ha. Duke Huai laughed loudly, and cupped his hands towards Yun Qinghong. I forgot to congratulate Big Brother Yun for receiving a godson. However, Big Brother Yun's adopted son is quite mysterious. This Duke had wanted to get to know him a little more these past days, but even with this Duke's eyes and ears, this Duke still couldn't get any information. It really triggers this Duke's curiosity. Duke Huai exposed the fact that he looked into Yunche with a straight face, and didn't even try to hide it. After saying that, he put his arms down and said, the grand ceremony is about to start, this Duke will leave first. When there comes a time that this Duke sends an invitation, I hope that Big Brother Yun will not reject me. Let's go. Duke Huai revealed a meaningful smile towards Yun Qinghong, then, he strode to the entrance of the Demon Imperial Palace. When he had one foot in the palace gate, he suddenly stopped, looked toward his front, and sighed with his back towards Yun Qinghong. Aside from you, Yun Qinghong, within the 12 guardian families, there are no others that this Duke has yet been willing to call Big Brother. If there's one person who this Duke doesn't want to be an enemy against the most, it would also be you, Yun Qinghong. Today, this Duke still calls you Big Brother Yun, and from this day forward, is Big Brother Yun willing to be on an equal footing with this Duke and call each other brothers, or? The results will naturally be decided by Big Brother. Duke Huai's remark stunned the Yun family and the members of Duke Huai Palace. The legs of the guards who were guarding in front of the palace were trembling, as they kept their heads down, pretending to have heard nothing. Duke Huai laughed softly and stepped into the palace, with Hui Ran and Hui Yi following closely behind. Royal Father, why did you show so much courtesy towards that Yun Qinghong? And even making the promise of having equal footing afterwards? How is he qualified? Duke Hui Yi asked in confusion. Duke Huai smiled lightly, and said with deep emotion, the Yun Qinghong that you know about had always been a useless cripple. But the Yun Qinghong from before you were born was the real Yun Qinghong. If you were born a few decades earlier, you wouldn't have asked this question. The previous Demon Emperor gave Yun Shanghai the title of Demon King back then, and even allowed him to have equal footing as him. The little Demon Emperor even saw Yun Qinghong as an example since he was young, and called him Big Brother. Even I, your father, was required back then by your grandfather to set Yun Qinghong as a goal. Ah, Duke Huiyi was stunned, and couldn't say a word. HMPH. Huiran scoffed in disdain. Royal father, you are being too serious. Even if he's that strong, with his age, he could be a mid-stage monarch at most. So the Yun family has another mid-stage monarch. How much of a threat can he be? There was no need for royal father to bribe him with equal footing. Duke Huai paused in a brief silence, and said, probably because the image of him is too deep in this duke's heart. Everything is prepared, and this duke's heart is extremely assured, but the thought of him having already recovered, there's an uneasy feeling. This feeling makes this duke feel extremely unpleasant. After entering Demon Imperial Palace, Yun Che followed Yun Qinghong and sprinted straight for Demon Imperial Hall. Decorated with glass tiles and golden domes, the atmosphere was extremely grand and majestic. This was the first time Yun Che entered the Demon Imperial Hall, and he was deeply astonished. He did not feel like he entered a massive palace, but instead felt like he had stepped into another world. Even Phoenix City of Divine Phoenix Empire paled in comparison to this. The Yun clan has arrived. The seats in Demon Imperial Hall were nearly filled, and those prideful rulers of their respective territories all acted cautiously within Demon Imperial City, not daring to even talk too loudly. They had arrived many days ago, and they had even come here many hours before the start of the ceremony when the sun had not even risen. Only the top powers within Demon Imperial City would come just before the ceremony started. Following the shout from the guard in front of the hall, the noise within the Demon Imperial Hall quickly quieted as numerous gazes shot towards the main entrance of the hall. The Yun family has always been the leading family among the 12 guardian families, and even though they had fallen to last place, they were still an existence admired by the masses. The arrival of the Yun clan caused all focus to shift onto them, as all kinds of expressions and gazes appeared on people's faces. Numerous people revealed an expectant expression, as though they hoped a good show would happen. Because the seats and positions arranged for the Yun family was vastly different from the past. A grand ceremony of this magnitude only happened once every 100 years. The 12 guardian families who possessed esteemed status were naturally given golden seats. In the past, Yun family, being the head of the 12 guardian families while also possessing the greatest strength at the same time, were the most highly regarded family by the different every demon emperor. Therefore, they were always given the leading seat closest to the Demon Emperor. It had always been his case, no matter if it was the Little Demon Emperor's succession ceremony 100 years ago, or the Little Demon Emperor's succession ceremony which soon followed. That seat had belonged to the Yun family for the past 10,000 of years, and had always been the pride of the Yun family. Today, however, that seat was not labeled Yun, but instead the word Hellion. Although the seats of the Yun family were still at the center of the hall, its seats were now the last of the 12 families and were placed at the very end. Even the word Yun was smaller than that of the other families. For 10,000 years, the seating area of the Yun family had never been changed before. Now, it was not only changed, it was shifted from first to the last place. As though declaring and mocking Yun family's great downfall to everyone present, as well as the entire illusory demon realm. Even an idiot could tell with one look that this was intentionally done by someone to mock the Yun family. It was also obvious who it was that did this. Because the arrangement of the entire ceremony was planned by the royal families. When the Yun family saw their seats, the looks on all their faces changed. Simply outrageous. Great Elder Yun Waitian clenched his fists, as he thought about his son who had been administered with venom by people from Duke Huai Palace and then eventually died under the hands of Duke Huiyi. The anger within him caused his body to tremble and glare with hatred. This is too much. Are they really treating our Yun family as a nobody? Second Elder Yun Duanshui said with a face full of anger. Let's enter our seats. Yun Qinghong replied plainly, then, he kept quiet. His face was as calm as always. He did not show any signs of anger or displeasure, not even a slight frown. With uniform gait, he looked straight at the sign of Yun and walked towards the seats. In an instant, everyone who were hoping to watch a good show was sorely disappointed. Some could not even help but come to admire Yun Qinghong, or even respect him. As calm as the clouds, indifferent, even when humiliated or favored. The underhanded blow that the members of the royal family whom possessed ulterior motives had set were not only unable to insult the Yun family one bit, it instead showed the world the superb demeanor of the Yun family patriarch in such a short amount of time. With such a patriarch, even if the Yun family had fallen temporarily, no one would dare to belittle them. 3 grand elders, please. Arriving at the seats, Yun Qinghong did not sit down immediately, and instead, paid respects as a junior to invite the 3 grand elders, Yun Jiang, Yun He, Yun Shi into their seats first. The 3 grand elders acknowledged him with a slight smile, and entered their seats at the same time. Only after that did Yun Qinghong enter his seat. The seats for the various major duke palaces were similarly golden, and the various duke palaces surrounded the Duke Huai Palace like stars crowding around the moon. From the moment Yun Qinghong walked in, Duke Huai's gaze never shifted away from him. Only until Yun Qinghong had sat down did he look down slightly. Even his chest seemed to rise and fall obviously as he said quietly, "Yun Qinghong is undoubted still Yun Qinghong. Are you worried that this Yun Qinghong will thwart our plans?" Beside him, a luxuriously dressed middle-aged man with a clean white face asked with a grin. However, from how he dressed, he was obviously not a part of Duke Huai Palace. After hearing news of Yun Qinghong's sudden recovery, this duke's heart became unsettled, and it was inevitable that this duke would be worried. Duke Huai said, "Doesn't Duke Zhong agree?" Duke Huai is being oversensitive." The person called Duke Zhong smiled as though he did not care. He only returned to being Yun Qinghong from a crippled person, and it's at most only another person that is an obstacle. Yun Qinghong is only 170 years old, and even if he were 1,700 years old and reached late-stage monarch, what can he do? He would at most be an obstacle that is a little troublesome. He wouldn't even be capable to cause any changes to our plans. With strength that we have gathered for so long, in this world, is there really anyone that exists who can thwart our plans? I hope it really is this Duke just being too oversensitive. Duke Huai said faintly after closing his eyes. The tolerance Yun Qinghong displayed caused everyone to be impressed. The members of the Yun family could also clearly feel the changes in everyone's looks around them, and only then did the sense of shame they felt get greatly reduced. Although everyone from the Yun family entered their seats, their faces were extremely unpleasant, especially the younger disciples whom all revealed faces of anguish, as they lowered their heads, unwilling to interact with any other members of the guardian families, especially the members of the Hellion family who were now sitting at the leading center seat, looking at them with gazes of contempt and ridicule. Dropping from the center seat to the seat at the end, such a feeling was hard to bear. Yun Qinghong swept his gaze toward his back. When he stopped, he said plainly, "What? Is sitting here such an embarrassing thing?" The disciples of the Yun family looked up in shock, uncertain how to answer. If just a seat could make you guys feel so discouraged and embarrassed, or if your pride needs to be satisfied by the position of the seat, then continue lowering your heads and let everyone present see your good-for-nothing look of grievance and humiliation. A truly strong person, a real man, would not kneel even if his feet were being crippled, nor would he lower his head even if his neck was being snapped apart. If it were our family ancestors that shook the world, forget about seats being placed towards the end. Even if they were being pressured into the mud, they would stick their chest out proudly and act with pride. Because this is strength and pride that was etched in one's bones. No matter what kind of seats we're sitting on, it is not embarrassing. How you are all acting right now is the true embarrassment. Yun Qinghong's words were like a timely wake-up call that violently rang within the heart and soul of every Yun family disciples. In an instant, they felt as though a fire had started to burn within their chest, and all the blood in their body, along with the pride and strength hidden deep within it, had been ignited. Every one of them raised their heads and looked up. The weak gaze they had previously was replaced by a determination as they looked at everyone else proudly. Patriarch, we are not good-for-nothings. As disciples of the Yun family, we will not lose to anyone. A young Yun family disciple said out loud, and the other disciples quickly echoed, as a sense of excitement and pride that was suddenly ignited filled the entire Yun family seats, completely swallowing the previous lifelessness in an instant. Good. Yun Qinghong nodded slowly. Now these are my Yun family men. If you yourselves feel that you aren't equal to others, then our Yun family will never prosper again. If you think that you are strong, our Yun family will be strong. Yes, Patriarch. The entire Yun family echoed in unison. Each of the short 2 words was deafening, nearly shattering the roof of the hall, as it directly broke into the skies. Seeing Yun Qinghong's back, Great Elder Yun Weitian was stunned a while, before he muttered to himself, all the experience I've obtained all these years, I thought that if I had become the Patriarch, I would not pale in comparison to the current Patriarch. It is only now that I know my thinking was simply a joke. Second Elder Yun Duanshui smiled slightly, speaking with deep lament, every generation of our Patriarch inherits not only their bloodline, but also the spirit that allows us to prosper generation after generation. The Mu clan has arrived. Following a shout that came from outside the hall, the Mu family of the 12 guardian families also entered the hall. Leading them was an authoritative-looking elder. Even though he was old, his face did not have one bit of wrinkle, and his hair and beard were all black. Only from his slightly bent eyebrows, long beard, and plain clothes did he actually look like he was an elder. On his right was the young master of the Mu family, Mu Yu Bai. The identity of this elder was obvious. It's Grandpa! Xiao Yun exclaimed in excitement. He was very familiar with this elder, but this was the first time Yun Che had ever seen this person. His biological grandfather. Mu family's current patriarch, Mu Feiyan. The Mu family seat was just on the right of the Yun family, just adjacent to one another. Mu Feiyan's gaze swept in front of him as he walked with big strides, and when he arrived at the Yun family seats, his brows quivered ferociously. Unconcerned with the presence of everyone that gathered, he scolded in rage, "Bastard things! They actually put your Yun family at the end." Yun Qinghong stood up and replied with a smile, "Calm down, father-in-law. Even though our family has been married for generations, we had never been next to each other before during a ceremony. Today, this will no longer be a regret and can be considered something to rejoice about." Hearing this, old Master Mu, who was exhaling heavily and staring widely, instantly slapped Yun Qinghong's shoulder and laughed loudly. "Good son-in-law, I knew that such a small matter is so insignificant that you will not put it to heart. Oh? Is this kid that godson of yours?" Mu Yuro pulled Yun Che and Xiao Yun out together, then said with a smile, "Cheya, this is my father. You can call him grandfather, just like Xiao." "Grandfather." Yun Che respectfully called out without hesitation, because the elder standing in front him now was his grandfather, and he had a quarter of his blood. "Mn, good kid. I can tell that you're different with just a glance. Especially your eyes, they look like Qinghong's when he was young." Mu Feiyan examined Yun Che for a while and praised, "Yu Bai usually does not praise anyone, but he speaks about you nearly every day during these past few days. I've heard so much that calluses are about to grow out of my ears." In his admiring glance were signs of deep gratitude. He knew that Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro's full recovery was all thanks to Yun Che. With his vast experience, he obviously knew that such matters could not be revealed in public, or else troubles would be invited. "I thank grandfather for the praise." Yun Che replied with a full smile. "These 3 are all my elder brothers. In the future, you can call them uncle like Xiao." Mu Yuro pointed at the 3 brothers who looked alike, and were standing behind Mu Feiyan. "That's your third uncle Mu Yuqing and that's your second uncle Mu Yakong." Yun Che greets second and third uncle. Yun Che greeted with respect. Only Yun Qinghong, Mu Yuro, Xiao Yun, and Yun Che knew of Yun Che's true identity because he said that he did not want to reveal it yet, and Yun Qinghong and Mu Yuro agreed to his request. However, Mu Yuro obviously could not control her urge to let her precious son reunite with his uncles. Mu Yuqing looked exceptionally young. He received Yun Che's greeting with a smile, not forgetting to praise him. "No wonder even brother-in-law is willing to accept you as his godson. Let's not talk about anything else, but just his looks alone are already not below me in my prime." Mu Yakong slapped his forehead and replied helplessly, "Old 3 suddenly gaining a nephew has indeed caused him to get carried away. Mn, Yun Che, your address of second uncle won't be for nothing. Next time when you visit our Mu family, I'll definitely supplement you with a gift. This is your great uncle, Che. You've seen him before already." Mu Yuro pointed to Mu Yubai and said. Yunche went forward and greeted in all seriousness, "Great uncle. Uncle, your sister." Mu Yubai waved his hand and yelled in dissatisfaction, "Didn't we agree to be sworn brothers earlier? Are you going back on your word? Or do you think I, Mu Yubai, am not fit to be your sworn brother?" There was no doubt that Mu Yubai was a prideful person. This was the first time in his life that he had wanted to become sworn brothers with someone else, and he was even willing to lower his own seniority to do so with someone who was in his early 20s. If he were to still be rejected, it would mean that he would have lost all the face that he had earned in his life thus far. Therefore, since he had already said it, he had to get this brother. It had to happen no matter what. Yun Qinghong, Mu Yuro, and Xiao Yun's faces changed drastically. 1 month ago, Mu Yubai said he wanted to become sworn brothers with Yunche, and although they thought that their ages weren't really suitable, there were no major problems. Now, however, knowing that Mu Yubai was Yunche's blood-related uncle, if it really were to happen, it would become a huge joke. Yunche laughed awkwardly, and said, Of course it's not that I'm not unwilling. How about this, if Senior still wants to become sworn brothers with me after today's grand ceremony, I would definitely not refuse. Good. Just as Yunche finished speaking, Mu Yubai quickly shouted in reply, as though he was afraid Yunche would go back on his word. He valiantly continued, "A real man never goes back on his word. I, Mu Yubai, will never go back on anything I say, even in death. We will go through the ceremony tomorrow. Whoever goes back on his word would be the son of a turtle. All of you are going to be witnesses." This, Xiao Yun scratched his head, as he looked away, not daring to look at Mu Yubai. Ho ho ho, Yun Qinghong laughed in a weird and shady manner. Mu Yuro grinned until her eyes became 2 lines. "Big brother, this is what you said yourself, none of us forced you to." The 3 weird expressions caused Mu Yubai to have a sense of unease. He stared widely and asked in caution, "What's going on? Are you guys hiding something from me? Enter your seats quickly, the ceremony is going to start in an hour. Today is not the day for you to fool around. Already nearly 200 years old and you still haven't given me a grandson, what kind of man are you?" HMPH. Mu Feiyan said with disdain as he walked with big strides towards the Mu family seats. The word, grandson, immediately silenced his 3 sons. They moved behind the old man, not daring to even utter another word. Mu Feiyan had 3 sons and 1 daughter, but even though his daughter had married Yun Qinghong, his 3 sons were still single until now, not providing him any signs of the arrival of a grandson. Whenever Patriarch Mu becomes angry at home, it was because of this matter 9 times out of 10. This was also why he had not yet given the patriarch position to Mu Yubai. He could only blame his 3 sons whose fear of marriage was etched deep within their bones. Normally, they were casual and unrestrained, but when they thought about being controlled by a woman when they got married, they would shrink away. The fact that Mu Yubai was persistent about making Yunche his sworn brother was a sign of just how carefree a person he was. As for the responsibility of giving old man Mu a grandson, the 3 brothers always pushed around the responsibilities. Many times, old man Mu would get so enraged that he would beat up the 3 brothers. Even so, not one of them had gotten married. The Under Heaven clan has arrived. The Under Heaven family was led by Patriarch Greatest Ambition Under Heaven, and Yunche could see unparalleled Under Heaven in the group. Slightly behind him, he could see number 1 Under Heaven. There was also number 3 Under Heaven and number 6 Under Heaven whom he had met 3 months ago, and the others elves who were in line with them were probably number 2 Under Heaven, number 4 Under Heaven and number 5 Under Heaven. At their center was the elf girl who caused Xiao Yun's bottom to leave the seat with a scraping sound as he said agitatedly, "7th sister. It's 7th sister." As a clan of the elven race, not only did the Under Heaven family possess eye-catching long ears and diaphanous wings, a distinct aura of nature energy could be felt emanating from their bodies. When they arrived, it seemed as though a cool breeze had just blown through the entire hall, causing everyone to feel refreshed. Seeing where the Yun family was seated, Greatest Ambition Under Heaven was stunned for a moment. When he went past the Yun family seats, he nodded towards Yun Qinghong, but did not say anything. Number 1 Under Heaven also nodded towards Yunche. Number 7 under heaven secretly stole a glance at Xiao Yun before lowering her head and biting her lips. She had not seen him for 3 months, and in 3 months, the thing she understood the most was that her chance of meeting Xiao Yun was become slimmer and slimmer. The under heaven family seats were adjacent to the Mu family seats. Xiao Yun's eyes followed number 7 under heaven, and only when she sat down did he look away. His eyes were not focused, he was lifeless, and his face covered with dejection. Yunche looked at his expression, and sighed silently. He knew Xiao Yun's eyes were downcast. He was not Yun Qinghong's real son, and the fact that he was from the profound sky continent was already a given. This caused the original obstacles between him and number 7 under heaven to increase tremendously. The backgrounds of the two of them were of two completely different worlds. Given up already? Yunche asked with a faint smile. Xiao Yun shook his head. I would never be willing to give up on 7th Sis, but now I really don't know what to do. Then don't think about this for now. A favorable turn of events often happens when one least expects it to. Yunche said with a smile before his tone turned more serious. Xiao Yun, the 12 families are almost all here. Give me a brief introduction of them, especially the leaders and the elites of the young generation. Oh, all right. Xiao Yun nodded. The 12 families were the strongest existence in illusory demon realm, so their leaders and the rising stars below the age of 35 were naturally names that shook the world. Xiao Yun, having been Yun family's young patriarch for the past 20 years, was naturally familiar with these people. He pointed directly opposite at a seat that was labeled with the word Xiao, and said, "That is the Xiao family of the 12 families. Their original form is the howling heaven Pegasus, and their family profound skill allows them to control tempests. Their patriarch is Xiao Shifeng, and rumor has it that he is in the 2nd level of the sovereign profound realm. For the young generation, the strongest is also their young patriarch, the person in blue, standing beside Xiao Shifeng. His name is Xiao Donglai, and even though he is 25 this year, which is 2 years younger than Yun Xinyu, he is at the same profound level as Yun Xinyu, 4th level of the tyrant profound realm." Yunche nodded, remembering every word. He said. Xiao Yun pointed to the seats on the right of the Xiao family which were labeled Jiufang, that is the Jiufang family. They are of the demon race, and their original form is the 9-headed flood dragon. Their family profound art is a frighteningly deadly poison technique, and they have a very deep relationship with the Hellion family. There would be marriages between the families nearly every generation. The current patriarch is Jiufang Kuei, and the person beside him is young patriarch Jiufang Yu. He is 30 this year, and his profound strength also seemed to be in the 4th level of the tyrant profound realm. However, it is rumored that he possesses a rare innate flood dragon poison, the 9 Emperor Venom body, that only appears within the Jiufang family once every 4,000 years. If one is poisoned by it, it is said that even a low-level monarch would find it hard to dispel. The Lin clan is a clan of human-demon hybrids. Their patriarch is Lin Guiyang, and the strongest of the young generation is the person sitting directly being Lin Guiyang. Lin Hanchuan, 29 years old, 5th level of the tyrant profound realm. Nangong family, human race. They are called the strongest sword users of the illusory demon realm and use dual blades as their main weapon. Their patriarch is Nangong Ji, and strongest of the young generation is the youngest son of the 8th elder, Nangong Yang. The Kai Yang clan has arrived. A loud shout interrupted Xiao Yun's narration. Yunche turned to look at the main door where a scarlet family was entering while bringing along a heat wave. Members of this family were fully dressed in red, and even their hair and eyebrows were scarlet. As they entered, the temperature rose drastically. Some of the weaker profound practitioners who hailed from more distant regions, who were on the weak side, were caught off guard as their skins burned with a burst of acute pain. Only when they hurriedly channeled their profound energy did they barely withstand it. That is the Kai Yang family. Their original form is the scorching sunfire dragon. They are a race of true dragons and are very strong. Their combined strength only loses out to the Hellion family and the Su family. They possess the scorching sun dragon body, and the speed at which they practice profound cultivation and learn profound skills is much faster than normal humans and demons. Their current patriarch is Kai Yang Bailey, and the strongest of the young generation. It's that girl. In the direction Xiao Yun pointed, Yun Che could see a young woman standing beside Kai Yang Bailey. She looked pretty, was tall, had scarlet hair, and a tinge of scarlet came from her wheat-colored skin. The most eye-catching thing about her were the scarlet-colored tight leather clothes that she wore. The scarlet leather shirt was short and wrapped around her voluptuous breasts, yet it revealed her flat stomach and navel. Her shorts were an even shorter pair of red tight leather waist pants that only barely held her butt and completely revealed her slender long legs. Hanging on the pants was a coiled scarlet whip, and unorganized lines of fire flickered about continuously upon it. It only took one look to evidently see that this was not a normal artifact. This wild and hot look immediately drew the gaze of countless young men, each one of them eyes shone brightly, salivating. However, it was obvious that she was already used to this kind of attention as she walked with her head held high, the elegance and pride clearly shone on her face. This appearance is too bold. If my wife dares to dress like this, I would definitely divorce her. Yun Che said with a crooked mouth, then immediately added, if it's only to show me alone, then it would be different. Cough. She's called Kai Yang Yinwu. It is said that her affinity with fire is almost equal to her ancestors from the ancient era. Her talent is frightening, and although she is only 24, she is already at the peak of the 5th level of the Tyrant Profound Realm, about to advance to the 6th level. However, Xiao Yun lowered his voice and continued, this Kai Yang Yenwu has a reputation in illusory demon realm for being very prideful, and it's said that no man has made her look at him straight in the eye before. Among the 12 guardian families, there is actually a family whose strongest practitioner in the young generation is a woman. This is interesting. Yun Che rubbed his chin and said, actually, it is not only the Kai Yang family that has a female as their strongest in the young generation. Xiao Yun pointed to the family who was labeled Bai, and said, that is the Bai family, who are also of the demon race. Their original form is the cloud-winged white tiger. Their patriarch is Bai Yi, and the strongest of their young generation is the girl on his left, Bai Jie, 30 years old, 5th level of the Tyrant Profound Realm. Oh. Yun Che nodded gradually, before his brows twitched. Oh, Bai Jie. Eh? Does Big Brother know her? Xiao Yun asked in shock. No. I definitely don't. Yun Che shook his head. It's probably the first time I've heard that name, but why do I find it so familiar? Never mind, tell me about Hellion family. Author's note, 12 family seating arrangement. East, north to south Hellion, Kai Yang, Bai, Nangong, Lin, Jiufeng, Xiao. West, north to south Su, under heaven, Yang, Mu, Yun. Summary note, the Xiao family of illusory demons 12 families is a different character from Xiao Yun's Xiao. Over the Rambo note, regarding the Bai Jie thing at the end, there is a mature adult novel named or, aka, Lustful Young MILF Bai Jie. Mars Gravity basically made a reference as a joke, don't worry about it being significant to the plot or anything, haha. The Hellion family are of the 9-headed demon snake race. Their current patriarch is Hellion Kwong, and that Hellion Peng Big Brother saw 2 months ago is his younger brother. The strongest of the Hellion family's young generation is that person sitting next to Hellion Peng. Hellion B.A. He and the Su family's Su Shizhan are the strongest among all the juniors from the 12 guardian families. However, Hellion B.A. is 31 years old this year, while Su Shizhan is only 27, so in terms of innate talent, Su Shizhan is slightly superior to Hellion B.A. Su family? Yun Che swept his eyes over the seating arrangements of the 12 families. The 12 families were split into two, one side east and the other west. The Hellion, Kai Yang, Bai, Nangong, Lin, Jiufeng and Xiao families were seated on the east side, while their own Yun family, Mu family, and Under Heaven clan were seated on the west side. And the northernmost seats on the west side were labeled with the word Su, but the seats were still empty as the Su family had not arrived yet. The Su clan has arrived. Just at the moment Yun Che was looking in the direction of the Su family seats, a loud, clear voice rang out from the front of the main hall. The 100 members of the Su family entered as one body, and they directly marched over to where their seats were. The middle-aged man who led the group came to a stop once he passed by the Yun family. He cupped his hands towards Yun Qinghong. Brother Yun, I hope you've been well. Yun Qinghong stood up and faintly smiled. Everything has been splendid. Big Brother Su's profound strength seems to have once again risen significantly. Congratulations on this great news. Ha ha, I am still far off compared to the freakish talent that is Brother Yun. The middle-aged man laughed in a free and easy manner. Zizhan, hurry up and greet Uncle Yun. Zizhan greets Uncle Yun. The youth who stood beside the middle-aged man made Junior's courtesy. His expression was filled with respect and he was neither servile nor overbearing. He was of uncommon bearing, but after Yun Che saw his eyes, he had a feeling that this fellow was also someone who was filled with conceit, but that was to be expected. Because all these absolute geniuses from the best families had grown up amidst the constant admiration and astonishment of others, it would be even more abnormal if they did not possess any arrogance whatsoever. After they had said their greetings to the Yun family, Mu family and the Under Heaven family, the Su family took their seats. Xiao Yun resumed his introductions without missing a beat. The person who greeted father just now is the current patriarch of the Su family, Su Xiangnan. And the young man was the aforementioned Su Shizhan. The current strength of the Su family is only inferior to that of the Hellion clan, but Su Shizhan will definitely not lose to Hellion Ba. Both of them are at the 6th level of Tyrant Profound Realm, but if they were the same age, Su Shizhan would definitely be the superior one. The Su family is the same as our Yun family, in that both families are all humans, so the relationship between both our families have been in good standing for generations. Patriarch Su is also father's longtime friend. In the years that father was crippled, he personally came to visit many times. Xiao Yun explained in detail. Yun Che slowly nodded his head. Moreover, from the looks that Yun Qinghong and Su Xiangnan had exchanged just now, he could surmise that the Su family was definitely not an enemy. That Yang family to the right of the Su family, they also humans? Yun Che pointed at the position the Yang clan was seated. Yes. Xiao Yun nodded his head. The Yang family are called the Divine Spear Clan and all the members of that family use the spear as their weapon. They also had a pretty good relationship with our Yun family all this while. 100 years ago, the Yang family was basically considered the weakest of the 12 guardian families, but now it is a title our Yun family ignominiously bears. The Yang family's patriarch is called Yang Zijing and their young patriarch is Yang Chenkon, 26 years old, 3rd level of the Tyrant Profound Realm. The Under Heaven clan are of the Elven race and their weapon of choice are profound bows and arrows. The patriarch is 7th sister's father, greatest ambition under heaven, and the young patriarch is 7th sister's eldest brother, number 1 under heaven. The one who is representing their young generation is 7th sister's 6th brother. He should be 28 this year, 4th level of the Tyrant Profound Realm. After Xiao Yun's introduction, Yun Che now had a good grasp of the basic information regarding the 12 families. Xiao Yun, what kind of level are Duke Huai Palace's Hui Ran and Hui Yi at? At the mention of these two names, Xiao Yun's expression clearly became a lot more nervous. Hui Yi is at the 6th level of the Tyrant Profound Realm and he is the 3rd amongst the illusory demons 7 scions. And that Hui Ran, I heard that he is already at the 8th level of the Tyrant Profound Realm. Yun Che's brows twitched. A late-stage overlord? The 12 families are already considered the pinnacle of power in the illusory demon realm, so why is their young generation so lacking in comparison? The various great duke palaces of the illusory demon royal family have always been small in number, so their combined power will not be as strong as the 12 families. But in the end, they are still royalty, so they have access to the best resources. Thus, the elites they produce, especially those elites from the young generation, had extra advantages which far outstripped what was available to the 12 families. Every generation's illusory demon 7 scions will be, on a whole, stronger than the 12's prodigies from the guardian families, but they won't be that much stronger. This Hui Ran is a rare monster, his innate talent is so high that it's bizarre. Moreover, Duke Huai Palace has definitely spared no expense in using an extreme amount of resources on his body to allow him to have an abnormal strength that far surpasses his age. I heard from mother that when father was 30 years old, he was also at the 8th level of the Tyrant Profound Realm, so this Duke Hui Ran is as strong as father was when he was young. Xiao Yun said in a rather dissatisfied tone. This was because, at least where the Yun family was concerned, Duke Huai Palace was an evil adversary. Oh, these two cases are very different to me. Yun Che faintly shook his head. Father had an innate potential which distinguished itself from the rest, whereas this Hui Ran had access to extra resources that far exceeded what our father ever had in his youth. He may be comparable to father when they were both this age, but once you look to the future, he definitely will not have the qualifications to be compared with father at all. MN, well said, big brother. Xiao Yun said in a voice filled with agreement. Yun Qinghong glanced at this set of brothers and he gave a dry laugh. After that, he looked forward and kept silent, not uttering a single word. It was only 15 minutes away from the official start of the grand ceremony, so at this moment, the Demon Imperial Hall was already filled to the brim. The various dignitaries, hegemons, main powers within the Demon Imperial City, 12 families and the great Duke palaces had all assembled. Yun Che turned his head, and he was just about to ask Yun Qinghong some questions regarding the little demon empress when he suddenly noticed that Yun Qinghong's expression was far more grave now as compared to when they had first entered. Yun Che furrowed his brows. His eyes swept across the crowd, but they began to slowly relax a bit. The center of the Demon Imperial Hall was directly north and it was where the Demon Emperor would be seated. The two core seating arrangements which were closest to the Demon Emperor were divided into an east and west wing, and these core seats were where the various great Duke palaces and 12 families were seated. The Su family, Yang family, Under Heaven family, Mu family and Yun family were arrayed from north to south on the west wing. Whereas the Helian family, Kai Yang family, Bai family, Nangong family, Lin family, Jiufang family and Xiao family were arrayed from north to south on the east wing. The west wing, where the Yun family was seated, had a total of 5 guardian families. Whereas the east wing had a total of 7 guardian families. The specific seating arrangement was East wing, north to south Helian, Kaiyang, Bai, Nangong, Lin, Jiufang, Xiao. Middle, north Little Demon Empress. West wing, north to south Su, Yang, Under Heaven, Mu, Yun. The two wings were exactly the same, but the 12 guardian families had not split themselves up equally. So this ended up with one wing having 5 while the other had 7, and this presented an uncomfortable asymmetry. And this asymmetry, during a grand ceremony where all the heroes of the land had gathered, definitely had to have some meaning. And the same imbalance occurred with regards to where the Duke palaces had seated themselves. There were also more royalty seated in the east wing than in the west wing. This even created a gap in the golden seats that were originally reserved for the royal family. Some aristocrats and nobility who were not from the Demon Imperial City were arranged to be seated there instead, causing their expressions to be terrified as this excessive, unexpected good favor left them restless. Father, the seating arrangement seemed extremely problematic this time. Yun Che asked in a low voice. Yun Qinghong slowly nodded his head. The situation is much worse than I thought it would be, far, far worse. This seating arrangement could be said to be drawing a clear line. That's right, this was indeed drawing a clear line. For those who were not from Demon Imperial City, they naturally could not tell what was happening. But as for those who lived in the Demon Imperial City, especially the members of the 12 guardian families and the royal family, they could tell with a single glance that the guardian families and royalty sitting in the east wing were either aligned towards Duke Huai or had even completely defected to his side. On the west wing, there was no one who was aligned with Duke Huai. They were all still loyal to the bloodline of the Demon Emperor, and as such, they were also loyal to the Little Demon Empress. At first, Yun Che was still rather unclear as to which of the 12 guardian families had thrown in with Duke Huai, but now, it was clear as day. And this was clearly deliberate on Duke Huai's part. He was showing to all those assembled that the power that he held was already this great, and it was a power that already completely suppressed those who were still loyal to the Little Demon Empress. Such a seating arrangement, such brazen and unscrupulous behavior. Duke Huai's intentions and desires were made abundantly clear during this grand ceremony. The various patriarchs and elders of the Su family, Yang family, Under Heaven family, Mu family and Yun family exchanged glances, and their expressions became incomparably grave. None of them had predicted that the situation would be quite so severe, that the power Duke Huai had been gathering covertly all these years would actually be so terrifying. Is it really so unbearable to have a woman as a ruler? Yun Che said with lamentation in his voice. The image of Kang Yu immediately appeared in his mind and it warmed his heart. He said to himself, thank goodness I healed that disease of my royal father-in-law so he can spawn a whole new nest of little princes. Because if there is a situation where he has no choice but to pass his position to Shuarul, then my princess wife will be in for a bad time, she'll be tired to death. To these powerhouses who stand at the peak of the illusory demon realm, women have always only been viewed as an accessory or even a toy for men. Thus, having to swear loyalty to a woman will indeed cause conflict to arise in their heart. But it should definitely not be a reason for them to betray the bloodline of the demon emperor. The greatest reason is actually their own greed. Duke Huai Palace had definitely peppered them with a copious amount of treats and enticements, but I just never expected that the two great families of Kaiyu and Nangong would actually be aligned with Duke Huai. This is absolutely preposterous. Yun Che could hear a deep pain emanating from Yun Qinghong's voice. What moves do you think Duke Huai will actually make during this grand ceremony? Yun Che asked, and why would he choose this particular occasion? Because this is where all the heroes of the realm are gathered. Yun Qinghong said as his brows sank. All the various district rulers, lords of the big cities in the illusory demon realm, hegemons and the leaders of all the main races, and even the leading figures hailing from every field of mercantilism, medicine, and craftsmanship were invited as well. Almost every single person among the 100,000 who are within this great hall is an individual who has a great deal of influence over a place, profession, or even over the entire illusory demon realm. It could be said that the 70 billion citizens of the illusory demon realm are completely represented by the 100,000 people present. When today's grand ceremony ends, these people will go back to their respective territories and they will disseminate all that has happened here today to every nook and cranny of the illusory demon realm. Once Yun Qinghong had finished speaking, Yun Che immediately understood what was going on. So that is to say that this time, Duke Huai wants the people to know that the little demon empress no longer holds the highest power and prestige in the realm, that the strength he possesses now is more than enough to suppress her. After which, he will force the little demon empress to abdicate in front of everyone here. No, you have only gotten one part of it correct. Yun Qinghong shook his head as he replied, he definitely wants to borrow this occasion to fulfill his meticulous and methodical plans, but he definitely won't use that method. Because that method will produce a result that is contrary to what he desires. It would produce the opposite of his desired result? Yun Che asked in shock. Yun Qinghong's eyes grew distant and he slowly began to recount. 10,000 years ago, the illusory demon realm was a sea of chaos. The human and demon races were locked in battle and the fire of war had spread to the four corners of the realm. This left the people in dire straits. But after that, the demon emperor clan inherited the legacy of the Golden Crow and received a great power. Henceforth, they led the 12 families and began a campaign that lasted several hundred years before they finally conquered the illusory demon realm. Under the brilliant leadership of the demon emperor, both the human and demon races stopped fighting. After that, he gradually began to eliminate the conflict between the races and brought peace to the realm. This has persisted to this day. And the primordial divine beast, the Golden Crow, became something that the people of the illusory demon realm have put their utmost faith in for the last 10,000 years. As such, the demon emperor became a figure that has been loved and revered by the citizens of the illusory demon realm through the generations. If Duke Huai forces the little demon empress to abdicate so he can take her place, then there would be rejoicing throughout the land only if the demon emperor bloodline had always led the people to calamity and caused them to undergo unspeakable hardships. But it just so happens that it is the opposite of that scenario, so if Duke Huai truly did that, all he would invite would be the wrath, rebellion, and rebuke of the people of the illusory demon realm. Even if the power that Duke Huai holds is 1,000 times what he has right now, how could he afford to provoke the burning wrath of the 70 billion citizens of the illusory demon realm? This is the main reason Duke Huai has never dared to make any hasty moves. Ah, so this how it is. Yun Che said as he lapsed into a momentary daze, so what action will Duke Huai actually take? He will definitely create a reason that is sufficiently adequate, a reason that will cause all the people to be convinced during this grand ceremony. Yun Qinghong said with a grave expression, the little demon empress has always been very clear about Duke Huai's disloyalty, but she has never taken any actions against him because she does not want to give him something that he can use, like saying her nature is brutal and vicious and that she harmed other members of the royalty for no rhyme or reason. So during today's events, the reason that he will concoct will be fairly simple. For example, he will implicate the little demon empress in a few rumors that would cause all the people to rise up in fury, scandals that he himself has created, of course. And they will be the most vicious and evil of rumors possible, such as promiscuity, harming her loyal citizens and even feasting on the innards of children. Yun Che's eyebrows slanted fiercely and he said in a low voice, and if these kinds of rumors were to be shouted out by a single person, no one would pay any attention, but if half of the guardian families and half of the royalty support these rumors and join their voices to rebuke the little demon empress, then all these people who have arrived from all over the illusory demon realm won't have a reason to doubt such lies. Furthermore, the public opinion will be manipulated in such a way that it will create universal fury throughout the lands. Thus, the little demon empress' reputation would be completely swept away and she would even become a villain in the eyes of the public. Once that happens, it would only be logical that Duke Huai succeeds the position, and it will even be done with the full support of the people. That's right, Yun Qinghong said as he nodded his head with a heavy expression. Because once he noticed the strange seating arrangements, he immediately saw through all of Duke Huai's thoughts. So does father have a plan to help the little demon empress avert this calamity? Yun Che asked in a serious voice. Yun Qinghong lapsed into a momentary silence and then slowly said, the plan is actually fairly simple, but now that 7 guardian families and the majority the royalty have sided with Duke Huai, it will be even harder to realize it, nearly impossible in fact. What is the plan? Yun Che asked swiftly. The plan is that we incline the hearts of the heroes gathered towards the little demon empress before Duke Huai can begin his scheme, so as to not allow his people to voice out the accusations they had already prepared. As Yun Qinghong finished speaking, he gave a long exhalation and he shut his eyes. It was clear that he was bitterly pondering how he should face and deal with the coming scenario. Yun Che silently considered Yun Qinghong's words and he was also drawn into deep thought. After a while, he suddenly opened his mouth and said, Father, once the grand ceremony starts, no matter what I do, I hope that father does not stop me. Yun Qinghong opened his eyes and gazed at him deeply. But he did not ask what he was going to do exactly, instead he simply nodded his head silently. And in the midst of those eyes which were as deep as the sea, lay the trust that a father had in his son, trust that needed no reasons. The little demon empress has arrived. At that moment, a reverberating, splitting voice filled the demon imperial hall and the originally noisy grand hall immediately fell into a hush. It was so quiet that one could hear the sound of pin dropping. Every single person raised their head to the skies and gazed at the sky above the grand hall. Episode 96 is end here. Next episode coming tomorrow. Thanks for watching.